Welcome back, everyone, to our Thought for the Day. You'll remember last week we interviewed lots of people from church, and this week we're going to have a couple of interviews because there are some other wonderful stories and important stories that we want to share from within our church community. And so today we're going to introduce Laz and Elena. Laz and Elena have been with us for about 5 years at the church, along with their 2 kids, and it's really brilliant to have them with us. So good afternoon, Laz and Elena.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you. So thank you for taking time to speak to us. And Laz and Elena are going to share about something they've both been through separately and, of course, together as a husband and wife as well. So I wonder if you just start off by telling us a little bit about what you both went through.
So just under 2 years ago, I received a call that my mum had a stroke, and she was hospitalized but was discharged. And 5 months later, unfortunately, she passed away.
Yeah, so I went through a similar thing with Elena. We received a call this year in January saying my mother had severe headache and collapsed at church. She got taken to the hospital and then was discharged a few days later. And then the same thing occurred and she was back in hospital. And unfortunately, she passed away, and it was a stroke, is what we were told.
It must have been very difficult for you both. I mean, the fact that it's your mum's, that in itself is, I imagine, a very hard thing to go through. But obviously, they both passed away in Zambia, and you're a long way away. And so I wonder if you just share with us about how the grief may have hit you in the process of going through dealing with the shock and the trauma of it, and how it might have affected you.
So I was really sad that I had lost my mom. I wasn't expecting to lose her at all, especially the fact that she was on, she had almost recovered from her stroke. But in my grief, I didn't cry when she passed away, which might seem a bit strange, but even though I was grieving, it doesn't, because I didn't cry, I wasn't actually grieving. I wasn't grieving. I was desperately sad, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't cry. I had other symptoms of grief, if you want to call it that, where I just lost my appetite. All I was surviving on was just water and some drinks, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, but
Yeah.
And you, Laz?
When we lost Elena's mum, it was very hard for me. It was very, very hard because I was very close to her. And then having lost my mother after that, I found it hard to cope. It was very difficult. And you have to think, I grew up with my mother, and I hadn't had a father for about 31 years. So all I know is a mother. And losing the person that's so close to you is so difficult. So what I appreciated is having Elena with me all the time. And then also having my family around. It's made the grieving process a little bit bearable. It's not easy, I must say, but it was actually, it was good knowing there's people like my wife and my family around.
It must have been a very hard thing to go through. I know you're both very committed Christians, and we see that just the way you take part in church life and the various things that you say and share. What was it like as Christians? How did you cope in terms of faith? Did you sort of question God? Were you angry with him, or did you feel particular special moments where you felt his presence and his love?
So I feel like when I look back now, I feel like God had been preparing me for my mom's death, even though I didn't know it at the time. Because on the day that I received the call that she had passed away, I just felt this sense of peace, and I can't explain it, but it's not relief. It was just this peace, and I was able to cope with so many things. I was able to sort out quite a lot on the day that somebody that's just lost their mother really shouldn't be able to do. And it's something that I really appreciated, because I had never really understood God's peace. I know that God loves me, and I've experienced his love, but experiencing his peace, that was the first time that I'd actually felt a real sense of peace, and it really helped me. But I also realized that he had been leading me to that point because I'd had several conversations with my mum about death all of a sudden in the last, I think, year before she died. The last proper conversation before she had the stroke was about her death and how she was not afraid of dying. Not because she was ill, but she just called me to tell me that, you know, she had lived a good life and she was so proud of everything that she had achieved, and that she was going to meet her maker whenever she died. So yeah, it was a very strange conversation at that time. But then I look back and there were so many conversations in the year before she died about her death. I didn't understand it then. And then while she was ill, I went to see her and I spent about 10 days with her. And they were probably the most valuable days that I had ever spent with my mom. I spent so much time with her over the years. I was very, very close to her. But in those 10 days, we had this fresh bonding. And when I look at the time that she died and how I was grieving, I realized that every time I thought about my mom, I wasn't actually thinking about the fact that she had died. I was thinking about the positive times. I was thinking about the conversations that we had had. I was just drawing on all the experiences that I'd had, especially in the last year before she died. And that really comforted me. And now when I look back, I think actually that was God just preparing me for, you know, once she goes, you will need these experiences. It really, really helped me. I wasn't angry at God at all. If anything, my mom's death has made heaven more real to me. I've always hoped that I will go to heaven, but actually now when I think about heaven, I think about it with excitement because I will see her again.
That's wonderful. That's really lovely. What about you, Laz?
Yeah, you know, my grieving was a little bit different. It's like when Elena was grieving for the mother, I took on that, you know, that hurt and that extreme grief. But when my mother died, I won't lie to you, I had mixed emotions and mixed feelings. I think it's normal when someone loses somebody that's very close to them. I found myself, I wasn't angry at God, which is good, but I did find myself questioning. Okay, so I always believe there's a reason for everything that happens. And so my mother dying, I then started questioning God and asking why he had to take my mother at that point. It was a bit harder to take Hitler to cope with her death also, because Mum was 71 years old. And I don't ever remember her having gone to the hospital for anything wrong with her. And all of a sudden, she gets a headache and then quickly things happen. So that kind of was a bit difficult for me to process and to take in. But then at the same time, I was getting the strength because on my own, I wouldn't have made it. I had to draw to the Lord for strength. So through a lot of prayer and just referring to the word of the Lord, it helped me just feel a little bit stronger. So you got to think. You can moan, you can grieve for somebody, it's fine, because Jesus did actually grieve for Lazarus in the Bible. So it's okay to do that. It's how I think when you grieve for somebody who is a believer in Christ, and if you are a believer in Christ as well, it becomes easier to grieve. In a way, you start grieving and celebrating somebody else's, the lost person's life at the same time, which gives you a lot of comfort.
No, thank you. It's good to hear that you both sort of experience different emotions. So I think sometimes we might wrongly think that there's one way of grieving and there's one set of emotions you should feel, and obviously grief is a very chaotic thing, isn't it, to a certain extent, and sometimes it can go on for years, can't it? Just briefly, tell us, how are you both now? Obviously some time has passed, and how are you doing now and going forward?
I'm still drawing on those positive experiences because there's times when I miss my mom all the time, and there's crazy times when I pick up the phone to try and ring her and realize she's not there. I really draw on those experiences, and I just pray about it, and think that really gets me through the difficult days.
Do you know what? For myself, Gary, it's been 4 months. It's still fresh. And I find myself sort of going back to feeling a little bit sad and then immediately that stops. I feel like something needs to complete. I don't know, maybe I haven't finished the grieving process. I don't know. But I do miss her. I think about her a lot. And I constantly pray for peace for not just myself, but the family as well. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. I know it must be difficult, must sort of drag up lots of emotions for you both, and so I really do appreciate it. Just as we finish, perhaps there's some people watching who have just recently gone through something maybe related to this coronavirus, or maybe something happened years and years ago, and they're still going through that, waiting for that sort of completion, like you mentioned there, Laz. Is there something you might just say, one little sentence just to finish, to encourage people in their difficult moments?
Just continually pray, because the Lord is in control. Keep on praying. Find a Bible verse or a song that encourages you, but just do not stop praying, even if you don't feel like it. Just pray, pray, pray.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the one thing I'd say as well. Never cease to pray. And talking about a Bible verse, I normally refer to James chapter 1. It starts off, asking you to be brave. That you will experience turmoil in your life. Carry on praying, and it's also good to speak with people as well about it. If don't be so close about it. Talk to someone, and then that would really help.
Oh, thank you. That's really brilliant. That's really lovely. Thank you again. Really appreciate it. All right, thanks for giving up your time to share with us. With us this afternoon. So don't forget, everyone, to tune in again tomorrow, and tune in every week, every day this week, 12:30, for some more interviews and some regular thoughts as well from me. And bless you. Have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.